I wasn't perfect, but I ate better than a lot of people that I knew. But it was a trigger, after I had my kids, it triggered my prediabetes, fatty liver, and gallbladder disease. And I just was starting to go into a depression. I was just, I felt depleted. So some people would think, well, you're over 40. This is just all a part of it. But I was just like, nah, there's something else. So fast forward, I just went into not just healing myself physically, reversing the diabetes, reducing the inflammation, purifying, detoxing, things like that. But the biggest shift was the mindset.
Welcome to the GenX Shift podcast, a show for Gen Xers who are navigating some pretty tough transitions and aren't sure how to move forward. I'm your host, Michele Walter, proud Gen Xer, former lawyer turned entrepreneur, huge Jason Momoa fan, and margarita snob. And I've navigated a lot of transitions in my life, from losing my mom suddenly to a heart attack to starting my own business. But I often did it all on my own because I was too stubborn to ask for help. Now I'm on a mission to give actionable strategies to other Gen Xers so that they can find the confidence, courage, and clarity they need to make a shift. So let's rock and roll. Well, hey there, my awesome Gen Xer. Welcome back to the podcast. And welcome to any millennials and boomers who I know are also listening in. We welcome everybody here at the Gen X Shift. Today, I am really excited to get to bring you a new connection that I have in my life. Someone who I, as I like to say, synchronistically met. The stars aligned for us to be in each other's worlds. Today, I am bringing you a powerful conversation with Dr. Leona Allen. Dr. Allen is a chiropractor and functional nutritionist for the last 20 years. And she shares her own personal healing journey from being overweight, having prediabetes, fatty liver, and gallbladder disease. Now, I do want to emphasize that this podcast is for educational purposes only. So we ain't here to diagnose or treat anybody. And I think you're going to get a lot of nuggets of wisdom from hearing Dr. Leona's own personal journey of healing, because she shows us what's possible when you believe that you can heal. And she talks about this. When clients come to her, that's one of the first things she gets crystal clear with them on is, do you really believe that you can start to heal yourself? Because if not, then why are you here? She also shares 3 fears that get in the way of us healing ourselves and finding more freedom for our health and our lives. Now, I want to say that this is a really practical episode. We're talking about digestible, pragmatic things that you can do to find more freedom in your health and life. And this is why Dr. Leona calls her business Freedom Health Systems. She has a podcast called the Heal Deal podcast, where she gets into all of these issues. And of course, I'll link everything in the show notes. So settle in for this one. And as you're listening, I invite you to be curious and give yourself some grace for wherever you are on your physical health journey, and see if Dr. Leona can't plant some seeds of curiosity for you. Enjoy this conversation. Hey, Dr. Leona, welcome to the Gen X Shift podcast. I'm really, really excited to have you here. I think, as I said the first time that we talked, and I'm going to tell that story in a little bit about how we synchronistically met, but I got giddy talking to you. I actually got goosebumps. And so I think this conversation today is going to be really powerful. So I'll introduce you a little bit more here in a moment, but I just want to let you say hi to the folks.
Hey, everybody. And yeah, I'm glad we met as well. It's just, an immediate connection, I think. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I was surprised when I got an email from the person who does your marketing, and surprised because I hadn't yet let the world know that I was doing a podcast. And so I get an email from your marketing person saying, hey, Dr. Leona Allen is this amazing chiropractor. She helps women, in all these different areas, holistic health. I think she'd be a great guest for your podcast. And I was like, nobody knows that I have a podcast because I haven't launched it yet. But your bio and your marketing sheet looked amazing. And I was like, yes, I would love to have her on my podcast. And so we connected. And on the very first call we had, I was just so excited, like had an electricity that I've noticed the more I do the work that I do in the world and I synchronistically start to meet people, there's like this electricity, these goosebumps I get sometimes when I meet people who I'm like, oh yeah, I want to be more in their orbit. And you're one of those people. So I think it was divine timing that your assistant reached out and set this up, because now we're recording the GenX Shift podcast this morning. And now we're recording your episode for the Heal Deal podcast tonight. I'm going to be on that. So it's like podcast day for us. So I'm very grateful that we have found each other across the internet waves. So kudos to your marketing person.
Yeah, she's amazing. I just trust her, and she's just made some amazing connections. And I'm just so glad we connected, and that we're going to have this exchange. And yeah, she's amazing. That's all I can say.
Well, so I want to, I'll introduce you a little bit already in the intro, but for listeners who are just getting exposed to you, you are Dr. Leona Allen, and you are the owner, founder of Freedom Health Systems. And I'll let you talk about your background in a moment, but you're a chiropractor, you're a functional nutritionist, you approach women's health from a very holistic perspective, which I deeply appreciate. And you have a fascinating backstory that I want you to be able to tell our listeners, because I think a lot of people will see themselves in your journey, especially a lot of women and a lot of women of color. And I think that you have a very powerful voice that will result in an impactful conversation today. So let's kind of take things back a little bit and rewind and tell me a little bit about your journey, your backstory, especially as a fellow Gen Xer. We're the same age, grew up in very different environments, same time periods, right? But yet we had very different experiences. And so I want to get curious about your backstory and what life was like growing up for you back in the 70s and 80s, and how that kind of set you up for the journey that you've been on. So take it away with your backstory.
Wow. I love talking about stuff like this, because I'm usually talking about health and, just real like the science behind health. But this is awesome to be able to share this side of me. So, and, I'm 52, not ashamed to say my age. And I, born in 71. And I think the most significant thing that really made an impact in my life is that I was a military brat. So my dad was in the Air Force. So I grew up living around the world. And I think that made a big impact in my life. So I was born in Illinois, and before I was a year old, I had already lived in Illinois, Florida, California, and Alaska.
Oh, wow.
So already at a young age, it's like having to adapt and change. And just, even though I don't remember, I know subconsciously it did play a part in who I am today. And then living in Alaska for 6 years was amazing, because my dad liked it so much. He stayed there for a while. And just being able to be exposed to the long days and the short nights, seeing what I see. I just remember snow being taller than me. So just growing up and being able to see different environments, different cultures, different people, different schools. I've learned to become very adaptable. So I'll just give you the short version of the story, because after Alaska, we moved to North Carolina. After North Carolina, it was Germany. So I lived in Europe for 4 years. So that was an amazing experience at a young age. So all this before the age of, I think, about 14, I've seen a lot of the world, and I've seen more in that time frame than some people have seen in their lives. And then from there, we moved back to the States. So I lived in upstate New York, We moved to Georgia. Then they moved back to not back to Michigan, Georgia, then Michigan. And then that's when I went to college. And then after my dad retired, they moved back to Georgia. So, that's kind of like the overview of my life. We can go in more details based on the conversation and what turned, because every place I lived played a role in who I am, how I see the world, how I relate to people, and how I see the world even today. So I really, when I was growing up, moving all the time was a challenge at one point. You make friends and then you leave them again. But then as an adult, it's like, wow, I mean, the stuff that I've seen, it has made me more adaptable and think differently than someone who has been in the same place all their lives.
I can only imagine. I know so many friends of mine who grew up with that military background and moved all over the place. And it's very different from how I grew up, which was I lived in small town Nebraska my entire life. I mean, we moved from a trailer to a quote real stationary house on the other side of town, and that was it. And so I hear and I see that adaptability and flexibility and worldliness of people who grew up in the military. And I'm also curious, do you feel like there was any sense then of instability or kind of lack of maybe, I don't know if safety is the right word, but it just, to me, if that was me, I would almost never feel like I was on solid ground. And I don't know if that was your experience or not.
I believe at first, it's like how I see it now and how I see it then is completely different. I think the biggest struggle I had was I didn't have friends. I always felt like I didn't have any close friends because I wasn't anywhere long enough to have a connection. So I think that was my biggest thing. I love traveling. I love seeing the world. I love snow. I love heat, not love snow, but, I've experienced snow. I've seen how other cultures live, the different foods. Even to this day, I'll eat food from around the world. So it really wasn't that. It was really the biggest part, I think, was connections and just having someone. And I guess as I got older, I wouldn't make friends because my mind is like, well, they're going to leave me anyway, or I'm going to leave them. And I think even today, I don't have a lot of friends because I never learned how to make them.
I'm really glad you mentioned that.
I laugh at now because I'm older, but it's like, it's more of a benefit. Not having a lot of friends.
You're like, I just need to be left alone.
Yeah, it's just like, I think now, I think it helps because if people do leave my life or move, it's a different feeling. It doesn't faze me because I had never had that closeness to begin with.
Yeah, that's such a great point because I think for one reason or another, whether it was because you grew up in the military and moved around a lot, or maybe you were just for a variety of reasons as a kid, it was challenging to make friends. That is a skill set that as children we develop, right? And so if you weren't really given that opportunity to develop that skill set, it makes sense that that's challenging to be able to develop friends even later in life. Plus, when we get to our age, relationships are challenging to establish anyway. And so it's sort of like we're going backwards a little bit, we're finding that as we get older, our relationships get more challenging, not only to maintain, but just even make new friends sometimes. Yes. And so I appreciate you sharing that experience because I think it's hard enough for people of our generation to lean on and ask for support. And I'll be kind of curious at how this impacts your journey and shows up in your journey, because I would imagine that if you moved around a lot and if you didn't have that opportunity to be able to develop close-knit relationships, that could have an impact on how willing you are to want to reach out for help or support or to lean on other people. So what's your perspective on how that background might have influenced your ability to lean into help and support as you got older?
Yeah, as a Gen Xer, I understand the importance of connections and relationships. And I realized as I got older, that was one of the biggest hurdles I had to overcome, allowing people to connect with me. Because by the time I got to high school, people just thought I was just antisocial, because I was like, because I didn't tell you this part. When we moved to Michigan, that was my senior year in high school. So that was I was in one school 1 year, and senior year, everybody has their cliques, you know? So for me, I just really stayed isolated, and I just had that one friend. There's people that knew me, but really I had that one friend. She kind of forced her friendship on me, and we're friends to this day. And
Mm.
she knew it. She was just like, you were just sitting alone, keeping to yourself, isolated. So I have gotten used to that. But getting older, I realized that was something I had to learn to connect with, being able to reach out, letting someone in, learning to trust someone long term, because I've been in Georgia since 1998. So this is the longest I've lived in one place. And because I haven't created that skill of meeting friends and maintaining friendships, I have them, okay? But I had to learn to trust and be okay. What's the word I'm trying to look for? See, I don't even know what it is because it's not something I experience. It's like, because I've been in this one place, I do have friends, but it did take a while to be able to trust them. It did take a while, but fortunately, they knew what it took to build friends. So they had to teach me to be their friend. So I guess what I'm trying to say, it takes a long time for me to just say, okay, this is the connection. So even when I met you, it's like now I'm starting to recognize certain connections and who I resonate with. And I think that's something I was lacking most of my life. So the people that are in my life that I connect with, whether it's temporary or permanent, is like, I'm just starting to understand ooh, it's like, I haven't been asked this in so long. So I'm like really trying to process this. It is coming to me. It's like because I've lived around the world and dealt with so many different personalities, I'm able to do that, but it may not be a long-term connection, but I'm learning to understand people for who they are and where they come from, and then allowing that to happen. So whether it's I guess I'm being more open to, is this going to be a short-term friendship? You know how they say people are in your life for a season or a lifetime? I'm really learning to understand that in this process as I got older. Hope that came out right.
I think you expressed that beautifully. And I appreciate you sharing that, because in my experience, it's a fairly common experience with people, especially if they've moved around a lot or for whatever reason they didn't have that stability or, again, that opportunity to develop deeper connections growing up. And I think what you said makes absolute sense. And what I hear as you say that is somebody who is really doing the work to learn and understand what it feels like to you and inside to be able to develop those closer connections. Because I hear kind of a difference in what you're explaining, that it seems like you could be thrown into a room with 100 people and have a conversation with anybody, right? You have that adaptability. And there's a difference between that and being able to cultivate those kind of deeper friendships, relationships, that whether they last a lifetime or they last 5 years, as you said, there are seasons sometimes to relationships. Yeah. So I really appreciate your willingness, and it takes vulnerability, I think, to be able to do that internal work of recognizing, when do I feel comfortable enough around somebody to want to learn how to trust them, because it doesn't happen overnight, and to lean into developing that closer connection a little bit. And I think if we can sort of normalize that for people, that's okay, you don't have to trust somebody right out of the gate and share your whole life story right out of the gate, and they don't have to be your best friend right away, right? That's almost the opposite problem. It's like too much, too soon, too fast. So if we can just learn to listen to ourselves and to lean into what feels comfortable to our nervous systems and not be overwhelmed, I think that that's kind of the big takeaway that I had from everything that you were sharing. And I don't know if that lands or not. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, it did. That was very helpful, because it's like now I realize what you said helped me understand what I go through. It's like I'm not connected to the outcome. If our friendship evolves, great. But if for some reason this person's like, I'm not going to call you anymore, great. So, but it's like the connections, they're important, but I guess I don't define myself with the relationships that I have. I believe that the relationships I do have are important right now, but if they fall apart or disintegrate, that's fine too. Because I have friends that'll call me from college. I went to Michigan State, and I maybe talk to them once a year. That's fine. It's great. So I'm just okay with the connections that I have as long as they're healthy.
Yeah, I think that's pretty next level awareness, actually, because I hear a detachment in that, and not in a cold avoidance kind of way. It's sort of holding things loosely, as we talk about it in the mindfulness world and the background that I come from, is that we can very much be present and connected to an experience or relationship, and also be detached from what may come, because we don't know. And so I hear that kind of next level awareness and detachment in what you were saying, which I think is really beautiful. So you've mentioned Michigan State a couple of times, and I know you graduated from there. So fast forwarding a little bit, tell me, how did you get interest in the science? You graduated from Michigan with a degree in science, and I want you to talk about that, and then kind of your transition and shift through and out of that into the chiropractic world and more functional holistic health.
Yeah, I actually got my degree in engineering. So I was an engineer for 4 years, and
what kind of engineering?
4 years, mechanical.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I worked for Ford Motor Company. I'm a big geek nerd.
I envy engineers. Yeah, I just think engineer brains are amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And we call each other engineers. That's what we call each other.
I can't believe I've never heard that. And when I was a lawyer, I worked with tons of engineers. I never heard engineered.
Yeah, that's what we call each other. But it was great. I mean, I loved college. Like I said, it was like going into a new school, leaving, like I said, I didn't have that connection. It was just like the friends that are still my friends are still my friends. But to fast forward and graduating, I got my degree in engineering, worked for Ford for 4 years. But it was that second year, I was like, nah, this isn't for me. So I was in my late 20s, I guess. I don't know the math. 94, I was born in 71. So was that about 20? I don't know, 20 something. So
yeah, I can't do the math
so
either.
It was like, nah, I just couldn't see myself. Maybe it was because I'm used to moving around and changing environments all the time. Maybe that had a lot to do with it. But after 2 years, I started to create a plan to go back to school and become a chiropractor. And I think when I was an engineer, it was just like that 9 to 5, that it just didn't fit me. It was just like every day the same thing. And then I was thinking ahead, like, can I do this for 30 years until I retire? And and the answer was no, I couldn't do it. Nothing against Ford. I mean, it was a great company. I got paid well, but it just wasn't fitting who I am. And fortunately for me, I was a kind of person like, I'm going to do something else. That's the way my life has been all my life. We could move. If you didn't like something, if I didn't like a school, I knew I was moving soon.
Yeah.
So I was like, I still had that mindset. So that's why I say now it kind of helped me. Like, I don't like where I'm at. So I want to do something else. People thought I was crazy, but fortunately for me, I was ready. I was a good changer. I was good at changing environments and doing something else. And I was always interested in health. My mom, she had a holistic mindset. I was always active in sports. I didn't know at the time, but I always wanted to be healthy and make healthier choices, even though I was doing it wrong at the time. I was doing the slim fast and all that stuff that was popular out there.
That we were told was
And,
healthy, right? Like that was the messaging.
yeah. And so I always had that mindset. So I was like, what am I going to do next? So I was looking into, okay, do I want to be a physical therapist? It was always something medical related. Because before I became an engineer, I actually went to school as pre-med. So I was always interested in physiology, anatomy. I always had the interest since I was 8 years old. And so that seed was planted. I don't know how I got there, but I was interested in the human body and diseases. So, but I started as pre-med, but ended up as engineering because I think back then I was thinking, dang, after undergrad, I got to go to med school and I'm going to be old. Back then, late 20s was old. I was like, man, I won't be 30 until I could practice. That's old. But in engineering, you get a 4-year degree, you can get out making 60, 70,000 a year. And back then it was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to make that change, but I didn't know about chiropractic at the time. What happened is I got in an auto accident. And that's when I was introduced to a chiropractor because I was taking the pain pills. I didn't like them. And then someone else was like, have you been to a chiropractor? And I was like, no, never heard of one. So I went to a chiropractor. He took care of me without meds. And I was like, I like this. No meds. And I got my neck back and I can move my neck again. And he also did holistic things because I used to get chronic UTIs and severe cramps and all that stuff. So he was not only a chiropractor, but he also did herbal therapies. And that's when I got into, oh, okay, my health interest went to a whole different level. So, like I said, I was always open to new things. Again, I think that's where my background helped me with, eating in different countries and stuff like that. So I was always open. I was like, oh yeah, what chiropractor? Let me look into that. I fell in love with it. And that's when I started my 2-year plan to, leave Ford Motor Company and move to Georgia, where my parents already were at the time, and go to Marietta to go to chiropractic school. And the rest is history, because in chiropractic school, we learn a lot about nutrition. A lot of chiropractors do end up becoming or implementing functional nutrition in their practice. So I still do both. But people thought I was crazy, because I had a good job. I had the benefits. That's another thing our generation is told. Get a good job with benefits. You want that security. But here I am saying, I'm going to start all over. I'm going to go back to school. And people thought I was crazy for doing that. But I have no regrets that I made that decision and move forward, because what I was doing was following my passion. And I was fearless because I was used to moving and going into the unknown. I mean, that was just who I was, not really realizing that a lot of people that thought I was crazy for doing that were just that was their world. They were in that security bubble. But that's why I named my practice Freedom Health Systems. Freedom. Mm-hmm. It was like freedom. That's my freedom to make those choices and do what I loved. And I'm glad I did it.
I wish I would have met you when I was in my 20s, because I needed someone like you to be that example that a lot of us Gen Xers don't see, which is that it's okay to change your mind and buck the norm and follow what's speaking to you. Because I have not done the work of listening to what is that inner voice that's guiding me until the last, since my mom died in 2012, really, like the last 12 years. And so back when I was in my 20s, the messaging, of course, that we get, especially as Gen Xers, is you find a career and you stay in that lane until you retire or die, basically.
Right.
And so it never dawned on me to go to law school and start a career as a lawyer. Even when I started knowing this doesn't really feel like me, I thought, nope, got to stay. It's what I went to school for. And I stayed for over 20 years. And I think that's the trap a lot of Gen Xers get into, because a lot of us haven't developed that skill of adaptability and being able to make change, being able to make shifts in our life, because it's foreign to us. Instead, we very much rely on loyalty and consistency and stability. And I think that's where we end up getting in trouble a lot. So I appreciate the moral and the lesson in your story, which is that it is absolutely okay to listen to your inner voice, to make people think you're crazy for leaving a stable job and going to do something that a lot of people don't understand. But staying true to yourself, to follow that path, is an important lesson, I think, for a lot of Gen Xers to take away from that. So I'm glad that you shared that part of your journey. And I know on your website, by the way, and I'm going to include your website for Freedom Health Systems and the website for the Heal Deal podcast. Everything will be in the show notes. And I really invite people to check out your website on Freedom Health Systems, because you have a beautiful video on your website that talks about your journey. And I don't want to share it because I want everybody to hear it from you. So I just invite folks to go listen to it. And I kind of want you to share the story of that video and kind of go a little deeper on when things started, when life really started causing you to question the path you were on and how you were going to start to embrace more holistic health for yourself.
Holistic. So the path to my holistic journey was the question.
Yeah.
There's many stages to that, but I think the biggest stage was when I was 40 and I had gained 70 pounds after I had my kids. So even though I was always in a holistic kind of mindset, the way it turned into what I deal with today is after it happened to me, at 40 years old. So not only that, I was like, I was running a career. I had 2 kids. I was overweight. I was tired. I was depressed. And you're coming from a society that says when you're 40, you're supposed to gain weight. You're supposed to deal with all these issues. But again, I was like, nah, there's another way. I didn't know what it was. Even though I was trained in this stuff, I was still missing something. But again, I'm thankful for the way I was raised, because something was telling me, nah, there's another way. So as I went into this journey, I just went into digging deep into what was going on and getting to the underlying cause of my weight gain. And what happened is, as I was pregnant, something about pregnancy exposing all your weak links. That's what it did. Pregnancy exposed me to prediabetes, the liver disease, and this stuff runs in my family. And I ate better than most. That's why I was shocked. I didn't really eat. I wasn't perfect, but I ate better than a lot of people that I knew. But it was a trigger, after I had my kids, it triggered my prediabetes, fatty liver, and gallbladder disease. And I just was starting to go into a depression. I was just, I felt depleted. So some people would think, well, you're over 40. This is just all a part of it. But I was just like, nah, there's something else. So fast forward, I just went into not just healing myself physically, reversing the diabetes, reducing the inflammation, purifying, detoxing, things like that. But the biggest shift was the mindset. And because I think this was a transition, because like I said, growing up the way I did, I didn't really talk to anyone. I was close to people, but when I was in this place where I was ashamed of how I looked and felt, I really didn't feel comfortable to tell anyone what I was going through. I couldn't trust anybody with that. And I really think that was the biggest hurdle to my healing, is because I tried to hide it or figure it out on my own. But it wasn't until I reached out and started to share my story that I began to heal. So I'm thankful for what I went through, because a lot of people think a lot of our weight gain and our illness is physical, and a part of it is. But I realized the huge part of my healing was emotional, and not to hide, and actually learn to reach out and ask for help, and not be ashamed of who I am and how I ended up.
So I'll just kind of summarize what I heard you saying in the last piece of that is really starting, first of all, to not listen to the societal messaging that, oh, you're in your 40s, you had a kid, this is what it's supposed to be like. And I think that's so important for folks to listen to, because I hear that all the time, especially from a lot of my girlfriends who are like, well, hit 40, now my body's going downhill. Oh, hit 50, now this is starting to go wrong. And for you to link the mindset piece, and we're going to talk about this, with the physical piece is so important because it's all one piece, right? At the end of the day, we like to think that our health is this separate thing from our minds and our emotions, and it absolutely is not. And so when we're internalizing shame and not able to reach out for help, not able to talk to people, that just perpetuates the cycle. And so I hear you kind of bucking those societal messages and saying, no, this is not how it has to be, just because other people says it is. And let me sort of face my shame and lean into the things that are really posing the roadblocks to me being able to get more physically healthy. And so I want to talk about some of the approaches and one of your podcast episodes in particular on the Heal Deal podcast, where you talk about 3 fears that get in the way of physical health. But before we do that, I want you to talk about what is your business like? Who do you work with? What kind of approaches do you use to work with other people, women who are experiencing, what you experienced?
What happened is, like, my practice just really evolved into what it is because of my story. So right now I do work with men, women, children, but I would say the bulk of my practice is women over 40 that can't lose weight despite diet and exercise. But as I start to work with them, it's like most of them eat pretty well. They go to the gym, they do all these things, but it's the mindset. It's like this subconscious inner thing that we had, like we just squashed down thinking this is the way it is. I'm too old. I waited too late. I don't deserve this. I'm ashamed of how I look. I've taken care of everyone else. It was just all these different things that has gone on in their minds that resulted in their habits. And that's why they're unable to change their physical body, because they have lost themselves. They haven't learned to love themselves. They haven't learned to trust themselves. And they may have had issues. They may have been hurt and maybe have internalized some of the relationships they had. They've had divorces. They've lost people. Not just saying like when I lose people, I don't have any emotional attachment, but it's like I can move on from it. I'll cry. Both my parents have passed away. Yeah, it affected me emotionally, but I didn't let it define my life. Sometimes when people lose people, they feel guilty about living their lives because they think it's selfish to do better or be better. So I've just never had that mindset, but I just realized a lot of the women that I work with struggle with their health because they struggle with self-care, self-love, prioritizing it, and being willing to change. Because if you have that internal mindset, oh, you can't lose weight over 40, oh, it's too late for you, it is what it is, you're not going to act beyond that. We actually take action based on our beliefs. So if you believe that you're not going to lose weight over 40 or feel youthful or enjoy life, then you're going to make decisions to support that. You're not going to enjoy your life. You're not going to make a change. Because I remember my mom. Here's another story that's very significant. My mother was a stay-at-home mom most of my life, but she went back to school at 40. And before she passed, she was actually a CPA. So like I said, it's like,
That's
it's
amazing.
like, for me, it was no big deal. I was reading I was cleaning up and I found a card that I sent her congratulating her. There was and I'm sure people in her life said, oh, you're too old to go back to school, but that never crossed my mind. She's
Yeah.
40 and going back to school because her kids were grown. So she was ready to do something for her. So I think the key with the women that I work with is that we got to start to change our beliefs, start to change our mindsets. And what happens is you will take action to support your mindset. So when I had that, oh no, I'm not going to do this all my life, I'm not going to work at this job all my life, I shifted that. I took action to create the life that I wanted to have. When I was over 40 and having all this excess weight, I was like, okay, I have the ability, the freedom to change that. And some people are just afraid to change. They rather stay in their discomfort because they're afraid of the unknown. But the unknown has been my life, moving everywhere.
Mm.
So that's why in the beginning I said I'm thankful for that, because it kind of made me fearless and moving forward. But don't get me wrong, it wasn't that I was scared or anything like that. I did experience the emotions most people face, but I was able to do it anyway. But my
Yeah.
only hurdle was the lack of connection. And I think that's what made me sick, because I was unable to talk about this or articulate it. And I think with you, this is the first time I talked about it in this way in a very long time. So I appreciate that. This is helping me.
I appreciate you because it's helping a lot of people too. So
Hmm.
sharing your story, that's the power of our stories, right? Being
Yes.
able to voice them into the world is not only healing for us, but it's healing for other people too. And I am resonating so much with what you're saying because my mom was such a poster child for everything that you just talked about. When we internalize, or maybe internalize isn't the right word, it's when we're unable to metabolize. That's a word that gets used a lot, especially when we're talking about trauma. When we're unable to metabolize traumas, things that have happened to us that have had a traumatic effect, when we're unable to metabolize challenging emotions, and when we decide to embrace these mindsets just because they're comfortable, those have real physical ramifications. And look, I know a lot of people might have some sensitivity to that because some people will take that as meaning, you mean that I look or feel this way because of what I think. And let's not catastrophize or anything right now, but let's start to become aware of how our unmetabolized trauma, how the emotions that we don't want to face, how the mindsets that we have are hindering our physical healing. Let's just start with that curiosity, I think, is the big takeaway for me. Because with my mom, she died of a heart attack at age 58. And which is weird to think of, that we're 6 years away from the age that when my mom passed away. And she was overweight. She was smoking. She didn't eat healthy. She worked like crazy. She died just after midnight in her office by herself. And she had a lot of, I believe, unmetabolized trauma, a lot of limiting mindsets and beliefs about not only who she was, but what her value, or probably for her, what felt like her lack of value, her self-worth was not. And all of that showed up in her physically. And it's sort of no surprise, although it was a surprise to all of us, but in retrospect, no surprise that she had a heart attack, because she just internalized all of that. And that's how it manifested. So tell me about, you've mentioned this a couple of times, and I love the name of your business, Freedom Health Systems. So you've mentioned a little bit about kind of what's behind that name, but tell me a little bit more about how you came up with Freedom Health Systems and the work that you're trying to do with your audience.
Yeah, so Freedom Health Systems, it's like, first it was actually Freedom Chiropractic and Wellness Center, but it was so long and then evolved Freedom Health Systems. But because then I went beyond chiropractic and wellness, and then everybody was using wellness. So then I was like, well, I don't want to use wellness like everyone else. So then it evolved to Freedom Health Systems, because not only do I do chiropractic, I do life coaching, I do health coaching, I do lifestyle coaching. So it's like really getting to the core and having that overall well-being. And like I said, it starts with the mind. So the health is in all aspects of our lives. Health isn't just what you eat, it's what you think, what you breathe, your life. It's about being who you are. And I believe that sometimes I'm a gardener, and I like to use this analogy. It's just like when you plant things in the right environment, it'll flourish. Okay. Some things are tropical. Some things do better in the fall. Some things do better on the west. Some things do better in the east. So that's kind of how our bodies are. If we're not living who we are authentically, there's a illness plays a role in that. I highly believe that. If you're being someone else, you're not going to thrive. You're not going to feel well. So it's like, I believe I have the health I achieve because I have the freedom to be who I am unapologetically. I'm not going to try to be anyone for anyone else. I'm going to be me. So that's where the health comes from, the freedom to just be who you are. And it's mentally and physically. And then the systems is because I was never the kind of doctor that was like, okay, eat this 5 times a day and take this. It was beyond, the physical part of healing. It's about having systems in place, having routines, having habits. So it's really about a lifestyle, having systems in place that support your health. So even when I'm coaching, I encourage morning routines, having the systems in your mornings, having systems in your evenings, having systems when you shop, having systems when you get stuck in traffic, having systems to make your life work for you, to support you. Like for example, my house is designed to support my health. My kitchen is organized in a way so I can cook with ease. My bedroom is a bedroom. Okay. We talked about, the closet thing, but my bedroom is meant for sleeping and rejuvenation. So if you saw my room, it's very relaxing. Has a 70s theme, but it's very relaxing.
I feel like now we should have done the podcast in your bedroom because I want to see the 70s theme.
So yeah, I got the shaggy rug and the disco ball, but it's very comforting to me.
You have a disco ball in your bedroom?
I mean, it's not on the ceiling. It's like it's on like a little table, so you plug it in and it does this little thing.
That is awesome. I love it because it makes you feel good when you're in there.
Yeah, it's very relaxing. But I don't have a TV in there, and all this stuff is meant to relax. My living room is the family room. Dining room is where we eat. So everything, home office, this is where I work. So it's just, we have to create systems and routines in our environment to support our health and to fit our personalities. All right. I got the shag rug. That's me. That my room fits me. My house fits me. And that's the Freedom Health Systems. And it really embraces everything that I've gone through. When I probably thought it was miserable at first, I don't have any friends. It's really come together into who I am today. And I'm more thankful for it. Would I wish things were different? Of course, sometimes, but I just learned to work with what I have and the experience that I've obtained through the years.
I just felt a huge release light bulb moment when you were talking about systems that I really am grateful for you saying, because I have unwittingly done that in my life. People always ask me, for a single person, I have a pretty good size house. And people are always, all the time, and it kind of pisses me off. People are always saying, why do you live in such a big house? Well, who says I can't live in a big house just because I'm one person, first of all? But second of all, I bought this house because I intentionally wanted separate spaces for things in my life. So I have my yoga and meditation room. That is my, nobody goes in there. That is my zone. I have a particular kind of energy that I feel as soon as I walk into that room, like everything in me just kind of calms down. My bedroom, same thing. No TV. It's relaxing. It's my sanctuary. I have my office. I have a workout loft. I have all these spaces. And as you're talking about systems, I've realized it's because these are my systems. I need to be able to do yoga and meditation. I need to be able to just relax and go to sleep in my bedroom. I need to be able to focus and do work in my office. I need to be able to just watch TV in the family room, whatever it is. And I didn't realize that I was kind of systematizing my life, not in a rigid, anal, type A kind of way, but because having those systems in place makes it easier for me to move through my day. And my body knows. So my body knows when I go into my yoga meditation room, okay, we're here to meditate. We're here to relax. When I come into my office, my body's like, okay, brain's turned on, let's work. So I think that's really, really a huge takeaway for me, at least, to start to bring those systems into your life. So thank you for sharing. It's a huge light bulb moment for me.
And I came up with another point, because just imagine how many women, they go to a job they don't like. They may be in a relationship they're trying to hang in, they're hanging on to this relationship. They live in a home they don't like. It's just like, but they, it's just like, but they don't want to take the effort to change. Because like my house, I didn't mention this, it's like I love nature. So I wanted to make sure I had a private backyard. I have a creek in the back, lots of trees. So now I don't have to, I love traveling, but because of the systems, it's like, okay, I'll just go to a different room. If I need a change of environment, I can go to a different room or go to my backyard. And like I said, we just create our life. But I think a lot of Gen Xers want to escape, or if they can't escape because they never left their town, they'll escape in food, they'll escape in TV and other things like that. But yeah, and that's key to how I help people, is helping them change their environment so they can thrive. But so many people are just stuck in, what supplement do I take? What diet do I need to be on? How many calories do I eat? I know you need to change your environment, and people are afraid to do that.
That's such a great point, because I thought of this when you were talking about something else earlier, that we are a culture of quick fix, overnight hacks. I hate the word hack. I hate it. I don't believe in me. The reason I don't like the word hack is because I think it undermines the very real fact that true change requires intention and effort and commitment. It's not a hack. So that just rubs me the wrong way. If it works for other people, that's great. But I really believe in that intention and effort. And so what would you say to somebody who comes to you, and maybe they're like a single mom on a budget, and they're sharing like a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids? How does somebody in a more limited space, or with limited financial resources or limited time, recognizing the facts and realities of our life, how can somebody like that start to bring systems into their life, or do some of the sort of cleansing and clearing in the home, as you were talking about? Where do they start?
Yeah, do what they can with what they have. And it makes me think of another client. She was in a similar situation. She was in an apartment and wanted to get a house. So what she started doing was actually decluttering, because, things can pile up in a house. So she started acting like she was going to move, even though she didn't know how it was going to happen. So she actually started getting rid of old stuff, boxing stuff that she wasn't, like books and stuff she knew she wasn't going to read. She actually started acting like she was going to move. And she just celebrated. This was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. She celebrated moving into her new home this year.
Oh
So
my
sometimes
gosh.
we just got to work with what we have and work with the mindset of where we want to go. And that's what happens. People are so stuck in where they are, they don't think of where they want to go.
Yeah.
And it's spiritual, it's energetic, it works. So
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, plan for the life you want, not for the life you have, and do what you can. You don't know where the money's coming from, but just start acting like you are going to move from this place, and opportunities will come. But if you're not thinking that way, you're not going to recognize it. You're just going to stay stuck where you are.
Yeah. What a beautiful story to share. And I resonate with that message, because we want to move in the energy of what we want to see for our life and still appreciate where we are. We don't have our head in the clouds. We still recognize where we are, because then we have the humility to take steps, as your client did, toward that life that we envision. So she was envisioning that life and still taking steps, packing up things and acting as if she was actually moving. And that's how we kind of move ourselves forward toward that. And I think that's such an important takeaway for people to remember, that we can visualize the life that we want. It doesn't mean we don't appreciate or aren't grateful for the life that we have now. It gets to be both, right? And we can be where we are now and still move toward a life that we want. So I want to talk about the mindset, get into the mindset piece, and talk about 3 reasons fear holds people back from health. And this was a podcast episode you did that I was just floored by and absolutely loved. And I'll link this in the show notes, but it was on the Heal Deal podcast, which you also have that website. And it was on February 13th of 2024. And you talked about the 3 fears that hold people back from health. So I want you to kind of tell us what those 3 fears are, and then let's unpack them a little bit.
To be honest, I don't remember.
I put you on the spot. That's okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So that's absolutely, you're like me, like we're like
the 3 fears.
Yeah,
it's probably 10 of them, but I just shared 3 in that episode.
When you live in the worlds that we do, in terms of, there's a lot of wisdom and information that's always coming at us and that we're digesting and putting back out into the world. I've done the same thing. I'll write a blog post or something, or do some video, and somebody like, oh, like you said so-and-so. I'm like, what did I say? I don't even remember. So it's not that we don't believe in what we were saying. It's just, there's so much information coming in and going out that it's hard for us to keep track of. So let me summarize the 3 fears. This is what lawyers call, let me refresh your recollection on what the 3 fears were. So it was afraid of the unknown, hiding behind the needs of others, especially for women over 40, and being uncomfortable. And I think those are all things that have sort of come up in the story that you were telling. Yeah. So there may be more fears. You are absolutely right. So if there are more that kind of come up to you as you're talking about this, please, let's talk about those too. But let's start with those 3. Like, how does the fear of the unknown get in the way of us, especially women, becoming healthier and embracing a more holistic life for ourselves?
Yeah, it's really funny that I covered a lot of this in my own personal journey, but it's just like if we don't know what we don't know, we are comfortable, even if it might be a toxic environment. We're unhealthy. We're dealing with high blood pressure. We're on tons of medication. Even then, women will stay stuck in that because that's all they know. They don't know health. They haven't seen the possibilities. Because one thing I want to add is a lot of women remain stuck because they don't know what's possible. They may not have seen someone over 40 lose weight. They may not have seen someone over 40 actually have healthy children. They may not have seen someone change their careers in midlife. So that unknown, like if they don't see examples of it, they're afraid to step out of that comfort zone because their fear is, what if it doesn't work? I know this life. I know this illness. I know what it's like to be unhappy. But what happens if I do step out? What then? And that is scary because a lot of people, we're not really taught that in life. We're taught be secure, don't take risks, especially our generation, this new generation. I don't know what they're doing, but it's kind of different. But us, we were like, be safe. Don't do that. Be careful. Even though we didn't have the seat belts and all that stuff, but that's another topic. It's like, it's kind of weird. Like, how did we end up this way? Because we had like less protection at some point, but I don't know. I think when I think about growing up, we were wild. We didn't come home before night. We were out there. So how this developed as we got older is a mystery to me. But I think that's the biggest thing. And we just don't know, especially if you're around family members and friends that aren't supporting you. They're like, no, that's not a good job. You had this job for 20 years. You might as well stay. So that's why women struggle with that fear of the unknown, because we're not supported to go out there and take chances. And yes, it is scary, but we're not really supported in stepping out into something we're new at.
And
that holds us back.
Do you think, sort of in conjunction with that fear of the unknown, that there's the piece of, we just don't know what the future could hold or what it might look like if I take this step? Is there also two other fears maybe associated with that? One, the fear of, well, what if I try this and it doesn't work? Then what? And two, the fear of, what if I try it and it does work? What does that mean for my life? Like, what does that mean for, if I lose some weight, does that mean, am I still going to want to be with my husband, for example? I don't know. Like, might success change my life? So there are several fears, I think, underneath that too. And I'm wondering how you might see those showing up.
Oh yeah, there's the fear of success and the fear of failure. Because what happens is, remember when I was talking about the environment, we are a certain way. We have our certain friends. They're used to us being a certain way. And another thing is, that unknown, you have to become someone different. You have to start to think differently. And the people around you aren't going to be like, all right, let's all do it together. They're all going to be in their own mindset. So if you see yourself changing, wanting to go back to school, wanting to lose weight, you got those people in your old beliefs that don't want you to think differently. So that's the thing. It's like when you do step out and everybody's against you, you end up getting drawn back in. So it takes a lot to just say bye-bye. Like I said, I moved all my life. So I'm like, see ya. So I've had that mindset where it didn't hold me back. But a lot of women that had their best friend they've known for 50 years, it's hard to let go of that when you start to move forward into the unknown, because it's a lonely place. It's scary, especially doing it alone. I think that's what gets women as well, because a lot of them feel alone because they automatically think that everybody around them is going to get on board. But if you do have that, you're lucky. But I'm just telling women now, you'll probably have to do this alone. That's why I'm there for them, but they rarely have someone. They may, it's rare, but I'm just saying it's very hard alone. And that's what scares them as well.
Well, and I call those the naysayers. I think I got that phrase maybe from The Artist's Way, the book by Julia Cameron, where she talks about when you're going on these personal growth journeys, you're going to have these naysayers in your life who are telling you you're crazy, you can't do it. Why would you want to do that? You're weird for doing that, whatever it might be. It's so important to remember that's their stuff. That's not your stuff. That has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. And it is extremely uncomfortable and necessary to still commit to your own journey, even with those naysayers yapping in your ear. Because you might have to see some people fall off your radar. Doesn't mean you don't love them. That's where, for me, the mindfulness practice of compassion, like, okay, I release you with compassion and love, but I don't need you really present in my life right now. You might have some people that fall out of your life as you continue on, because for some people, seeing you step into yourself, lose weight, become healthier, get a new job, become happier, whatever it might be, only reflects to them that they're not where you are and that they're miserable with their life, right? So it's so important to remember you're going to have those people in your life and you have to kind of block them out. So I think that's really, it's an important piece to remember. So the second fear, this hiding behind the needs of others, it kind of dovetails into what we were just talking about, because some of those naysayers might be your partner, your kids, your parents, your close friends, the people that you help to take care of. And so this fear that shows up as hiding behind the needs of others is so common, especially with women, that shows up as, I don't have time. My mom was this way. I don't have time for myself. I'm taking care of too many other people. She called herself the office mommy. I mean, that kind of says it all. She took care of everybody else in the office except for herself. So talk about how hiding behind how important you are to other people gets in the way of your own physical well-being.
Yeah, and I experienced this after I had my own children, because before, I was just like, see ya. but but when I had my own kids, it was different. It's like, okay, I got these kids now. I got to be responsible. So I actually hid behind my kids, but fortunately it didn't stay long because I needed my health back. So I had to find a way to make it work with the kids, leave them and trust them with the care of someone else so I can work out and do these things. But what I see in women generally is they will end up, so some women I got married, I'm divorced now, but I got married later, like in my late 30s. And then I got divorced about 13 years later. But like a lot of women have gotten married younger, and their life stopped then. They had their children younger. My kids are 12 and 16. So a lot of friends my age are grandparents already. But what they found is they got married younger and had children younger. So their life stopped when I was starting over back in school pretty much. So they stopped for their spouse, their children, their jobs. And that's what happened to a lot of Gen Xers today, is like now they're in their 40s and 50s. Like, where am I? What happened? Now their kids are grown and they're like, ooh, what do I do with myself now? Because they spent the last 20 years taking care of their families. So they would hide and they probably put off their health because they're like, I got to be there for my family. I got to get my kids through school. I got to take care of them. And they have let themselves go. So hiding behind others is a big, big issue, especially now, because now they're at a point in their 40s and 50s where they're like, I want more, but I don't know how to take care of myself anymore because I've been taking care of others.
That seems very much related to self-worth, because having been somebody who is like that myself, having had a mom who's like that, my observation is that by focusing so much time taking care of others, and that's not to undermine altruistic reasons like wanting to be of service, but that scale can tip toward an unhealthy side. And so when we're focusing on others in an unhealthy manner for us, what that really indicates to me is that we feel a need to get validation of our self-worth from external factors, as opposed to realizing that even if I didn't take care of anybody else, I am still worthy. And that no amount of that external focusing on other people's needs has any impact on my inherent self-worth. So how do you get women especially, and not to say that men don't suffer with that too, I just think it's more common with women. How do you get women especially to start to understand that, honey, you are worthy, no matter how many people you do or don't take care of. And because you are worthy, it's okay to put yourself first so that you can actually show up to serve and support people in a more healthy, sustainable way?
That's a tough one because we have been so conditioned and programmed to feel the way we feel about ourselves. A lot of women, it's on it, and it is changing a little bit now, but I believe that I'm trying to think of an example of when it clicks. I think, that's a good question. How to come out of that self-worth. It's like a lot of women are just so, let me just talk about some of the women don't even realize what they're doing. Okay. It's because it's all
just
they
habituated.
Know. Yeah. So it's like, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to really get them to understand, look, you got to take care of you. So for one, it's helping them realize what they've done. And then once they've realized it, then giving them tools to start to actualize. And it's not like self-worth and take trips by yourself. It doesn't have to be that glamorous. It's really just start with taking care of you and don't put off what you need for other people. It's like, it's like sometimes, like, let me just use an example of getting them on a health program. A lot of women will say, no, I don't want to do the program. I don't want any coaching because I need to invest in my children's school or something like that. And sometimes I have to tell them, what good are your children if you're not there for them? Because my motivation to get well, having my children at 36 and 40, my motivation, even though I hid behind them, what clicked for me, it didn't take long, fortunately, was I need to get well it's for them. I want to be in their lives for as long as possible. So I had that. I knew what I needed to do. So I guess helping them visualize and see what will happen if you don't take care of yourselves. Now I have an answer to your question. I have a client. she's like been putting off her needs to take care of her aging mother. And one thing I said to her is like, okay, you're putting all the time in taking care of her. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. No, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, who's going to take care of you if something happens to you? And a lot of women don't have that person that will take care. I don't. If something happened to me, I don't want my kids to do it. So I knew I had to take care of myself so I can be as healthy and thriving as possible. And that's what woke her up. She was just like, wow, everybody around me's sick. I'm taking care of everybody else. The kids are grown. They need to be taking care of themselves. But when I told her, who's going to be there for you if something happens to you? And that's what clicks. So sometimes it's the right conversation and the right questions so they can realize what they're doing. Because a lot of women don't even realize. And if they don't, they won't change, unfortunately, because they think that's the right thing to do.
It sounds like you planted a real seed of awareness that sparked that insight, which is the power of coaching, because you're really giving space for your clients to have these insights themselves, which is more sustainable fuel for them to take this journey. Because if you were just telling them what to do, in my experience, that might get them through for a little while, but in the long run, they're not going to know how to tap into their own internal resources to do it. I don't want to say for themselves, because I think we always need help and support, but just sort of have that sustainable fuel again to be able to continue on their journey. And it sounds like you really, in that situation, helped your client have that insight for herself of, oh yeah, it's not selfish to take care of myself in that sort of, I'm going to go to the spa every day and get my nails painted, or I'm going to take fancy trips. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being able to continue to participate in life in a way that's fulfilling for you and allows you to still show up and be of service and support others too. So I think that's really beautiful how you walked her through that. Yeah. Okay. So the last fear, at least the last one from the podcast episode, and then maybe there's some other ones that you want to highlight, but there's just a fear. And I think we've talked about this a little bit, but that fear of being uncomfortable. So what are some of the ways that uncomfortableness, discomfort, shows up in clients that keeps them from wanting to go on this health journey?
Anything new is uncomfortable. And again, this is a society issue. It's like we want to be comfortable. We want everything, push a button, and everything is great. But when you're on this journey to healing, just stepping out your comfort zone, it's uncomfortable. It kind of ties in with that unknown, that fear, of that unknown. So it's like, let me go back. It's like we live in a society where everything is comfortable. You're in pain, there's a pill. It's like, it's like you're depressed, there's a pill. We're not taught how to handle life. We medicate it. So when you take off even food, so when you remove the comfort food, the comfort pills, the sleep pills, the antidepressants, all that stuff, again, we are seeing stuff that we haven't learned how to manage, and it's uncomfortable sometimes. So we have this idea that, okay, we're going to make a decision to be healthy. We're going to make a decision to change careers, and it's going to be easy. It's going to be great, but it's going to be uncomfortable. And a lot of women aren't prepared for that. It is going to be uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me, but we just got to do it anyway. Because for me, staying where I was uncomfortable. So you got to choose your discomfort to stay where you are or go into that new thing. But a lot of women choose that discomfort or being comfortable in the discomfort that they're in now. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
they've
mean,
gotten used to,
yeah. Yeah. Like
yeah, so they just
you're,
got used to their current circumstances, but it kind of ties in with that other stuff. But really, that fear of, okay, I got to learn something new, I have to eat differently. It's uncomfortable. And that's really what holds a lot of women back. But I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, I was cutting you off because I got really excited about what you were saying because, um, that there's a choice that's made whether folks want to recognize it or not. And you're just choosing which discomfort you want. There's a reason for that saying, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And
Hmm.
that's what we're choosing because we know this discomfort. I don't know the discomfort that lays down the road. And I think there's a helpful framework for folks, and I'm sure you've come across this in your work, but in psychology, there's this visual of comfort zone to growth zone. And when you're in your comfort zone, the next zone right outside of that is the fear zone. And that's where a lot of people get blocked and they get stuck, is because they don't want to face that fear. What we want to remember is that fear, that discomfort, it's all temporary. Because once you're moving through that fear, the next zone is the learning zone. And that's where you're learning new things, learning how to be in a new way, learning how the old ways didn't work for you. And then the last zone is the growth zone. And then pretty soon that growth zone becomes your new comfort zone. And that's
Yeah.
not a linear process. Sometimes you go into the fear zone and then you're back in the comfort zone. And then maybe you leap ahead to the learning zone and then you're back in the fear zone. But I think it's a helpful framework or visual for people to keep in mind that it's not that the fear isn't the end all be all. There's another side on the other side of the fear. And the fear is normal. The discomfort is normal. And it's all temporary because pretty soon what you thought was uncomfortable is going to be your new comfort. And so it's just the
Right.
process keeps going over and over again. So,
Yeah.
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 Are there any other fears that are coming to mind that we haven't talked about that you think might sort of get in the way of people wanting to take more autonomy for their physical well-being?
A lot of the fears that come from those top three really covers
Mm-hmm.
most of the fears that we have. I mean, there's trust issues, of course, not trusting themselves or trusting others with their issues and asking for help. So that's a big thing, not asking for help. We try to do it all ourselves. And with the discomfort thing, it's like the fear is that we're uncomfortable and not getting to that point of discomfort to the growth zone. It takes work. So a lot of people are afraid of the work that's involved. So, I mean, those
Mm-hmm.
three really cover all the fears, in my opinion. But it's just, I think the biggest one is realizing this and actually doing the work to get from where you are to where you want to be. Fear of risk taking. People are afraid to take risks. They're trying to stay secure and they want to guarantee in all of their decisions. But we got to be willing to take risks. We got to be willing to trust not only others, but trust the process. And impatience is another fear.
Mm.
They not maybe a fear, but it is an obstacle where people are impatient now and they just don't want to wait. They rather
Yeah.
stay where they are and then be patient and trust the process. What else? I mean, there's a lot. I can't really come up with any more, but those are the biggest ones,
Mm-hmm.
is that we get ourselves in our own way. And the first step is really realizing it and just being willing to do it. But that fear of the unknown is a biggie. What if,
Mm-hmm.
what if,
It's
what if?
huge.
Because for
Yeah.
me, being overweight and having liver disease was uncomfortable. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like choosing your discomfort. You want to be uncomfortable where you are, or you want to be uncomfortable in where you want to go. Either way, there's discomfort, but we got to learn to approach it and not be afraid.
So if you are willing to share, where are you now in terms of your liver disease, the gallbladder issues? Like, where is your health now as a result of the healing journey that you've been on for yourself?
It's all reversed. I'm good.
I like, I love that that's the answer. Like, it's all reversed. I'm all good. And I'm like, I really want to highlight that point that we're talking about real practical effects of doing this work. And I love that you mentioned that there can be fear of doing the work, which is kind of ironic, especially for our generation, because a lot of us, I don't really put myself in this camp, because honestly, if I didn't have to work, I wouldn't work. I'm a big fan of doing nothing. But like, a lot of us really pride ourselves on working hard. Yet when it comes to working on ourselves, doing internal work, like, nah, I don't want to do that for a number of reasons. So there's a little bit of an irony there, but I really want to emphasize that when you do the kind of work that you're talking about, there are actual real world implications. So how has this changed your life when you look back to when you were overweight and in your early 40s compared to now?
It's like when I started this, it was actually, I was 41 when I was like, okay, I have to do something. My child was a year old and I was still overweight. And I was like, I got to do something. And again, it was like practicing everything I preach. I had to trust the process. I didn't know I was going to end up where I am right now, but I just started moving forward, just taking that first step. And it took me over a year to lose weight. So I don't say, hey, I don't mark if, I don't talk, I never said I lost it quickly. I say it takes work. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. They're just like, how long does it take you to lose weight? Oh, it took me a year. Oh, I want the quick weight loss.
Yeah.
So, it's like the choices they make. But it's like I did the work I did the work, and it included making the time for me, even with my busy schedule, my clients and my kids. I made it work. I had to create systems for where I was. So a lot of women want to wait till after their kids grow up, they'll do it. But I didn't want to wait that long. So I created systems with where I am now. So what I did back then is different than what I do now. So that's another thing as women we have to remind ourselves of, is like our lives now is different than our lives in our 20s and 30s. We have more responsibility. So you have to create systems with where you're at now. So I created systems to heal. And then after I healed, I create systems to maintain it. And my kids are older, so my systems have changed. So we got to be flexible. Lack of flexibility could be another obstacle, not really a fear, but it's another obstacle, because we want what worked when we were 18 to work in our 40s, and it's not the case. So we have to be flexible. We have to be open-minded. So I think that was a big part of it, is I did what I had to do for the first year and a half to lose the weight, but then I have systems in place to keep the weight off. Because a lot of people do things to lose weight or get healthy, and then they're healthy, they go back to their old habits. Like, okay, I lost the weight, I'm gonna go back. That doesn't work either. So all of this is a part of who I am and supporting who I am. And a lot of it wasn't diet and exercise. I was angry, I was tired, so I had a lot of things going on, and my habits reflected that. But now it's like, I choose to be healthy. This is who I am. It becomes part of your identity. What you eat, what you think, it's just all a part of it. So it's like, it's like you couldn't pay me to eat at a fast food restaurant. It's just not who I am.
I use them for bathrooms. That's all.
Yeah,
I used to stop in fast food to go to the bathroom.
Because of reflection. It's like, this restaurant doesn't represent who I am. So and that's really the big part of it. So people have to realize once you come back to who you are, your actions will support that. So I want to be healthy. I want to have energy. My actions will support that. And I think a lot of people deal with willpower. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do this and that. After you evolve, you're not going to want to. I don't feel deprived at all.
Yeah, that's an important takeaway, because what you're talking about is a lifestyle change. And it can be hard to imagine having a different kind of lifestyle when you are where you are now. So trusting that process, being willing to take things kind of one step at a time and slowly, gradually. It's not going to happen overnight. And pretty soon, when you adopt this as more of a lifestyle, as opposed to a diet or a hack or a quick fix or a 90-day program, whatever it might be, that's when you're more likely to do the maintenance. And from that new lifestyle mentality, you might be surprised how things start to look different and the different choices that you want to make. Mm-hmm. So I know that the way you work with people might differ depending on the person's circumstance, or you might have some different programs. But as a general matter, walk us through a little bit, kind of highlight for us when somebody comes to you, how do you start working with somebody? What's the process and the systems that you take them through?
Well, the first thing is they have to be ready to change. If they're just stuck and they have this belief set where they're skeptical, and I know I can't not get through that person, I don't even accept them. They got to be ready to change. So it's like harder to make people change. You can't, because I'll get women, they want to bring in their spouse or whatever, and they didn't make the appointment. They don't want to do it, but the wife does. And I'm like, if they're not ready, I can't help them. So first they got to be ready and willing. And then I have to assess where they are. So what I do is just really get a history of where their mindset is, where the struggles are, what has worked in their life, what hasn't, because everybody's different. So I have to kind of see where they're at. Someone who just wants to lose 10 pounds is going to have a different approach than someone who's been overweight for 20, 30 years and need to lose 80 pounds. It's a different approach. So it's a combination of meeting them where they are, a combination of finding what systems they lack, trying to expose the barriers that they've allowed to stop them, and helping them navigate and not feeling like they have to do it alone, because it's scary. So I'll walk them through that, things they need to expect. For example, if they're doing a detoxification or something and they might feel lightheaded or have headaches, what I do is just say, hey, be ready. It's going to get uncomfortable, but I'm here for you. And I'll help you get through it. Because sometimes we have to go through the nausea. We like
the detox.
Think that if we have diarrhea and fever, it's a bad thing. I'm like, no, that's your body eliminating stuff. That's your body getting rid of it. It has to go somewhere. So just relax, let it process, and it always goes away. Because a lot of times we interfere with the body's natural healing process. Sometimes we need a good ugly cry. In my healing process, I had the ugly cry and I felt great ever since, because we hold in so much emotion. So we have to eliminate, we have to have the episodes and let our body process, because we spend so much of our lives stopping the healing process that as we get older, the body just accumulates all these things that you stopped. So it's just giving them a safe place to say, hey, you got these holes going on that you've been patching up. Let's unplug this one first. Let that air out, fix it. Fix it back up again. And then this one. So giving them a sequence, helping them heal the right things in the right order at the right time. Some clients have to start with the physical aspect first, but after assessing them, some of them I have to start with the mental aspect first. Because if they're already thinking, I can't do this, I'd be like, you're right. If you believe that, you're right. So we got to get through. You got to be able to believe that you can do this first, and then, they can do the work. Because if they're like believing it's not going to work, but some clients are like, aren't even aware of the words they tell themselves. So sometimes I repeat after them, because they're like, what? I'm right. Because they'll say like, oh, this won't work. I've done this many times. I'd be like, you're right. You're right. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm here. And I'm like, yeah, you are. But then you're going against what you want. You're telling yourself it's not going to work, but you're here because you want it to work. So you're contradicting yourself. So sometimes I have to repeat what they're saying to themselves for them to hear themselves, and then they can move forward from that. So sometimes I just act like the mirror to them so they can see what they're doing, and then showing them what's possible. So a lot of the healing has to deal with, I think what I went through was huge in my ability to help other women, because one of my clients called me, what did she call me? like a prophetic. I can't work. I can't think of the words. It was kind of catchy. Like I'm a prophetic testimonial because she's like, because people have seen my journey. They're like, if she can do it, I can do it. So they see me go from where I was to where I am now. So so I think that's what helps them to
Mm-hmm.
share what's possible. But then they just have to have them believe that they can do it too. And then once they have that belief, I just take them through the steps to get them there. So that's in a nutshell what I do. But it is a lot of mindset that I
Yeah.
have to cover.
And how does the functional nutrition piece, because you are a functional nutritionist also,
Yeah,
so tell me a little bit about how that
right.
comes into play and what that looks like.
So once they believe it and they're ready to trust the process and go through all the discomfort and all that good stuff, the functional nutrition is looking at their actual physiology. What is going on underneath, as with my engineering background, I like to say underneath the hood.
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on with their liver? What's going on with their digestive system? What's going on with their kidneys? So I use the functional nutrition is like as they prepare their vehicle to get through life, it needs a tune up. We need to repair the organs because our bodies is the vehicle that we use to get through life. So we need to take care of it. All right. So it's helping them, when you have it's nice to, like I use car analogies a lot. So when you're in your car, you want it working well to get from where you are to where you want to be. So when we go through life, whatever it is, we want our vehicles to be in the best shape as possible. And so we can function better. So really, when you're healthy, you can think better, you're more creative, you're more positive. It's just different. So the two go hand in hand, but we live in a society where they try to separate the two. Just think about the medical institution. You got the heart doctor over here, the internist over here, the endocrinologist over there. And our bodies is one whole thing,
Yep.
everything. The physical affects the emotional affects the spiritual. It's all connected. So that's why I love what I do because I grasp all of that. I connect all three of those in one. But yeah, the functional nutrition is to get their vehicle in order and make sure everything is functioning the way it's designed to function.
I love a good visual, and the vehicle one really lands for me. And I think that's just an easy way to see why that functional nutrition piece is so important. It's like the fuel you're putting into the car. You don't want it to be junk fuel or it's not going to go anywhere.
Right. And the
Yeah,
car
it
has
sounds like you
systems that
really,
work together. The engine doesn't work
yes.
alone. So everything has to work in harmony. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Just like our
Yep.
bodies, everything has to work in harmony.
Yeah, that smooth running engine. Yeah. What are some of the benefits or success stories that you can share, respecting confidentiality, of course, that you see from people working with you that can kind of inspire somebody to want to face that fear and go on this journey themselves?
The first example that comes to the top of my mind, not telling people to get off their medications or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of this issues that we just discussed, we tend to be in a society where we medicate our issues.
Yep.
And a lot of women, by the time they come to see me, they're seeing me because of the side effects of the medications. The medications making them gain weight. The medications making them feel a certain way, and they don't want to get on more medications. So going through the process I mentioned earlier to get them healthy is like the biggest success is what I see is they come in with so much stuff. They come in with so many things to mask who they really are. And medications is a way for them to expose what they need to address. So, say, for example, if
Mm.
you're on medications for high blood pressure, if you come off, what's going to happen? If you're on medications for diabetes, if you come off, what's going to happen? So, these things aren't cures. So, what's powerful for me is the medication. I understand what's going on because they get on the medication in the first place because of the lifestyle choices they made. So, again, I have to go through the process to fix under the hood, get them going properly. But when they're able to come off the medications and they don't have the high blood pressure anymore, they don't need insulin anymore. When I think of that, for me, it's a huge success story because of what it takes for a lot of men and women that actually come off their medications, because they're told you have to be on it for the rest of your life. And they're actually afraid to come off the medication. But when they do come off, I don't know, it's something about that. It's like,
freedom, like freedom. It
powerful.
sounds like freedom.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, exactly.
Because that's one of the scariest things for people to do.
Absolutely. That sounds so powerful, again, for somebody to be able to have that freedom away from medication.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, you have the Heal Deal podcast. You've mentioned that a couple times. So just tell me briefly what the podcast is about and what you hope to do, what you hope the message of the podcast is that will be spread.
Yeah, I launched the Heal Deal podcast about a little over a year and a half ago. And really the focus of the Heal Deal podcast was to just have candid conversations about different aspects of our lives. I didn't want to be discussing the 5 things you need to do to overcome diabetes or the 3 diet tips. I do talk about that, but it gives me a platform to talk about all aspects of health. Like I'll tie in so many things and related to health, like gardening or a vehicle or a journey, and even some of these obstacles, the episode that you liked, and really taking in these different factors and correlate it to how we treat our bodies. Like I could take a grapefruit and create a podcast around how that can symbolize our health. I mean,
I'm going to challenge you to do that. That'll be your next podcast episode.
I know. I could just say, okay, give me a topic or give me an animal or something like that, and I can create a podcast out of it. But it's like I can see examples of what we need to do in anything, almost anything, a light bulb, you name it. But it's just like how it's about, my tagline is achieving more freedom in your health and your life. So how you do anything is how you do everything, how you think, how you plan, how you create, the people you have around you. So the Heal Deal podcast is really to share the truth about what it really takes to heal. Because being in this career for 20 years, it's kind of sad to see all these quick fixes and these lies that are being told, and people are being so misled. And it's just a chance to just talk about, hey, we can't keep looking for the quick fix. This is what it takes to get healthy. And unfortunately, it's not popular. I mean, there's women out there looking for it, but they're so overwhelmed with all the other things out there. People are having a hard time telling what's real and what's not anymore. So the Heal Deal is like a play off the Real Deal. The Heal Deal is just, this is what it takes. And you can try the quick fixes if you want to, but at the end of the day, it takes about exposing how you got here, getting true to yourself and putting in the work and being okay with being uncomfortable, being okay with, telling your family that this is what you need to do, being okay with stepping outside your comfort zone. That is the only way. The healing is outside of your comfort zone. And my story hasn't changed in 20 years. There's no other way.
I think that's a beautiful, beautiful note to end on. I think that just summarizes everything that you've talked about. And you're such a shining example of how commitment to this work and to this journey really does manifest itself in a way that allows you to live a healthier, holistic lifestyle. Because I wholeheartedly agree that it's all connected. There is no mind-body separation. It's all one mind-body. We have one life. It's not work and life. It's just life, right? And so the more we can lean into that kind of holistic mindset and really embrace that it does take constant work, constant dedication and effort and intention. I think get over the lies, the hacks, the quick fixes, we would all be better off. So I appreciate you sharing that message. Yeah. I don't want to leave without taking you through a really quick lightning round for Gen Xers. Not to put you on the spot again, But I'd love to know, especially with all the moving around you did, what is your fondest Gen X childhood memory?
Ooh, fondest Gen X memory. I'm just going what pops in my mind at first.
Yeah.
Just being kids. Man, our generation, we played outside, we rode bikes, we got on pogo sticks, we climbed trees. I mean, we didn't have to worry about car seats, we didn't have to worry about bottled water. It was just that freedom of being a kid. We were allowed to be kids, I believe. So now, especially looking at generations today, it was just, I think that is my biggest thing that I loved about being. I don't even remember your question. I just started answering. But I hope I've answered the question. But
you have
being a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's almost like we were like feral in a good way, because we had a lot of freedom, which I think is why we are a generation that is fairly obsessed with freedom. And also for a lot of reasons, not necessarily great at realizing that freedom. So yeah, I think I love that just general memory of just getting to be a kid, because we played outside, we got in the dirt, we got dirty. We weren't worried about germs. I'm not saying don't worry about germs, but we weren't worried about germs. We had the life back then.
Yeah, I even ate dirt.
Yeah, we did. Oh, totally. Totally.
It
wasn't a good day if you didn't come in covered in dirt.
The monkey bars and swinging around.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. The monkey bars, just being able to ride our bikes wherever didn't matter. I mean, I played down by the river, for God's sake, by myself as a toddler, elementary school kid. Kids wouldn't get away with that today. So yeah, we had a lot of unsupervised freedom. Growing up.
I walked home from school in kindergarten.
Yeah.
We were only a couple of blocks from the school. And this was when I was in Alaska, but I walked back home. Yeah, I mean, kindergarten. That would be unheard of right now.
I've heard stories actually, or a story, I think it was in Maryland, I could be making that up, of somebody who called Child Protective Services on a family who kept seeing the kids walking home from school, and the house that called Child Protective Services was concerned. I'm like, okay, yeah. So yeah, not to say there aren't bad things that are happening in the world today, or that everybody should just let their kids walk home from school, but it was a different time that lent itself to that kind of freedom, I think.
So now it's all coming back to me. I remember walking my brother, when he was in kindergarten, I'm 6 years older than him. So if he was in kindergarten, maybe I was in elementary school or middle school.
6th grade, 7th grade, maybe.
So I would walk him to his school, and then I would walk to mine. So it's just a different level of freedom back then.
Well, yeah, I was, my brother was born when I was almost 11. So I'm almost 11 years older than him. I was his babysitter. I was babysitting a new human being when I was 11 years old. I was babysitting, when we lived in the trailer court, a gal who lived a couple trailers down. This was before my brother was born, I'm quite sure. So I was probably not even 10. And this gal, I think she had cerebral palsy. So she was in a wheelchair. She was a few years older than me. I was babysitting her at less than 10 years old for $1 an hour. It was, So, all right. Biggest piece of advice for other Gen Xers going through transition?
Ooh, the best advice. Go for it. You had that. It's not
simple.
Too late. You want to take those dance classes? You want to go back to school? I don't care. Just do it. Start that job. Start that career. Write that book. Just do it. Because I would feel more miserable going through life saying, "Oh, I wish I wrote that book," or "Oh, I wish I went back to school." I mean, where would I be? Would I still be at Ford? I don't know. But just go ahead and do it. I don't care if you're 50, 60, just go for it.
Agree with that wholeheartedly. Go for it. Favorite Gen X era word or phrase?
Gen X word or phrase? Oh my goodness. Gen X word or phrase. Right on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we can claim that.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
yeah. I'm sure there's others, but that's the first thing that came right on.
Right on.
Yeah, grew up watching Soul Train, so
Yeah.
now
Yep. Yep. I think that's like
peace,
a
love,
carryover,
and
like,
was it
yep.
soul?
Late 60s into early 70s, Soul Train, Right On. Like, yeah, I love that. Right
Yeah,
on. I
yeah.
had somebody the other day say Word Up. I'm like, yep, that's another,
Oh yeah.
that's another one. Yep.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
sure others will come back, but yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you were a professional sports player, what would be your theme song that they would introduce you to?
The first one that comes to mind, because I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. So probably that word, not that word, that song, I'm Bad. You know
Yeah.
I'm bad.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say Gonna Be Starting Something, which is one of my favorite Michael Jackson songs, but I'm bad. I like
I can
that.
see myself in a sport. I'm bad. Who's
Yep.
bad?
I am.
It's like Michael Jackson has a song for every mood. I mean, he was awesome.
Totally.
I grew up
He,
watching, and it's just thinking about, back in the day, here's another Gen X thing. We had the cassette tapes, and if we wanted to
mm,
record something, you had to wait on the
yeah.
radio and
Yep.
have it ready. So that
Yep.
was me. I think by the time Bad came out, we had CDs and stuff. But if you wanted to record, you had to catch it on the radio. So yeah, but I was
Yep.
a
I
huge
have,
Michael Jackson fan, like Beat It, when those songs
yep.
came out.
Yep. I had the Michael Jackson, I think the Thriller poster on my wall
Thriller.
growing
Yeah.
up. And I have vivid memories of standing at my dresser, which was kind of tall, and my boom box with the radio was on the dresser. And I'd be standing there, usually like Casey Kasem's, countdown or whatever, like the
Oh, yeah.
Thursday night dedications were or whatever, with the getting ready to hit the record button as soon as it came on, because you wanted to get the very beginning, but you didn't want to get
Yeah.
too much of the DJ talking. There was an art to being able to illegally record music off of the radio back then,
Yeah.
but we did it. Yeah. Okay.
And
Last
what's funny?
one.
I think I
Oh, go
still
ahead.
have some of those cassette tapes. I'm gonna pull one out one day. Just listen to my bootleg cassette tapes
The
from the
bootleg.
80s.
I'm trying to remember. I know I had some in my basement, and I don't remember if I got rid of them or if I still kept them. I'm hoping I kept them. I should go down there and look and see, because
Mhm.
I don't even have like a Walkman or a cassette player anymore. I'd have to go find one, get one off of eBay for probably $500 now because they're vintage. So,
I still have mine. I
do
have a
you really? Does
Discman
it still
and a
work?
Walkman. And yeah, I kept my cassette player.
Are they in your bedroom with your disco ball and the shag rug?
Absolutely. I have a record player too.
Oh, see the record
That's in
player.
the
Yeah.
basement. Yeah, that's in the basement. I have
Mm-hmm.
I still have my record player from the 80s.
Do you have a big record collection?
No, I don't. I wish I had kept only records I have still are my Michael Jackson ones.
Oh, I love that.
But I got rid
Yeah.
of I wish I didn't, but I did. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what happened to them, but I did get rid of a lot of records. Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of one of my fantasies. This is how lame my fantasies are, I guess. One of my fantasies isn't just for me to have the record player or record collection, because that would take a lot of time and money to invest. I want to find a dude that already has the record player and the record collection so I can just benefit from what he's already collected. It's on my list.
Yeah.
All right, last question. What are you most proud of being a Gen Xer? I think I might know what you're going to say here.
Most proud of, man, I am very proud of being a 70s baby. I mean, just what we've gone through, what we've seen in life before social media. And even though I didn't have lots of friends, it was still the friends that I did have were authentic. They were face to face. We went bowling. We played games, board games. We jump roped. So I believe that, the experience I had as a Gen Xer and living around the world and seeing things and doing things and being active has really played a role in who I am today. The music, especially. I love the music, not just the 70s, but the 80s. That's just awesome. I guess we're like our parents when they thought they had the best music. I think we had the best music. I tell my kids that we had the best music and the fashion, I remember I begged my mom didn't want me to wear afro because, it's just hard to comb out. But anyway, I begged for an afro. I love the bell bottoms. So I was that 70s baby. I'm the poster child for the 70s. And to this day, I love the style. That's why I have a disco ball and a shaggy rug in my bedroom.
Yep. I think the 70s were better style than the 80s. I feel like the 80s kind of went haywire in a lot of ways. But yeah, the 70s, I do. I love that style too. And I think there is a great argument for the music of our generation being the best music because it's still popular today. Yeah. Like a lot of younger generations still love our music. I have an elementary school behind my house. They are, and it's granted probably a bunch of Gen X teachers, but they are constantly playing 80s music for recess and before school starts in the morning. I walk outside one day and they're playing Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. And I'm like, are elementary school kids jamming out to Journey? I guess so. So yeah, I agree. I think our music really is the best because it has that staying power.
My kids know it well because I play it all the time. So, and then they'll tell me, oh, this song, and they'll be singing along. Sometimes they'll sing along because they listen to it with me. But sometimes they're like, oh, I know this song from TikTok. I'm like, really? So yeah. Yeah, they know it's the best as well. Yeah, they know. They won't admit it, but they know.
That's awesome. Well, Dr. Leona, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I, again, really appreciate your marketer finding us, hooking us up together. I think it was meant to be. I can't wait to be on your podcast. And I really hope that we can just continue to get to be in each other's orbits because I know that I feel so enriched just by the lessons that you have to share, the wisdom that you share, and the example that you set for women, especially of our generation. So thank you for the work that you're doing and for really giving yourself that space to embrace that authentic you because it's helping other people.
Yeah, and thank you for allowing me to be on your platform and asking some really good questions. I mean, it was just amazing. It felt good to really go back to my childhood and share what it's like to be in the 70s. So this is a wonderful, wonderful platform that you're doing. And I know you're going to help lots of women as they transition as a Gen Xer. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Hold on, Gen Xers, don't go anywhere. I pulled a total rookie podcaster move and completely spaced on asking Dr. Leona to share where y'all can find her and connect with her. I got so excited about our conversation and all of our Gen X nostalgia and her awesome 70s bedroom that I forgot to ask her to share all of her social media and website info and the freebie that she has for all of us. So this is all in the show notes, but I want to run through it real quick. You can find her website at drleona.com, which is drleona.com. She's on Facebook at Dr. Leona, Instagram at dr.leona, YouTube as Dr. Leona Allen, LinkedIn, Dr. Leona, and her podcast, which we talked about, is the Heal Deal podcast. Best of all, she's got an awesome freebie that y'all can download in the show notes for the show, which is the Weight Loss Breakthrough PDF. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I've made a new connection, someone who I hope that I can have back on the podcast. And I would be really curious to see what insights you might have gotten from this podcast for yourself. I hope that there were some seeds planted that have invited you to learn how you can take more autonomy back for yourself, to find that freedom for your health and your life. As always, let me know if you have any questions by sending me an email at podcast@lifefromthesummit.com. Please rate, share, and comment on the podcast on all of your favorite listening platforms. And until next time, stay gold, Gen Xers.